My first solution relates to sustainable development, and that's that buzzword I've mentioned beforehand. This idea that we want to continue our lifestyles. You know, I very much enjoy watching 40 hours of sports each weekend. You know, I don't want to all of a sudden not do that, not watch TV because it requires energy and requires electricity. So sustainable development, continuing on with our current lifestyles, but being more mindful of the future. And so being more mindful of my kids' kids, and the kids' kids. And so those future generations. And this all relates to kind of the idea of prevention. Not so much preservation, but prevention. And this is something you find in medicine. I mean, I'm very, very close friends with some doctors, some real doctors, and they are very much, they teach their patients about prevention. And so not only do they cure, but they also try to prevent. So trying to come up with better ideas. And so this is where we can start pointing fingers at different groups. And I'm not going to, make a claim that, in low-income countries of the world, you need to stop having babies. But definitely, more ideas related to preventing the large amounts of population growth, the high population density we find in a lot of lower income areas. And so where their problem isn't so much resource use and technology and affluence, it's definitely in controlling their P, controlling their population from that IPAT formula. So essentially coming up with ways to lower birth rates or continue to lower birth rates and maybe trying to encourage that. Further, definitely something I very much preach in any lecture, in any course, is improvements and continued improvements in gender equality. That's going to then, I think, help to relate to those fewer births, as women have more say in the reproduction, as women continue, work on education and career, then consider children. Further, kind of thinking about, let's try to increase the burden on some of those polluters. So part of prevention is those who pollute, let's fine them. Let's try to come up with ways to make sure, and usually it's in the pocketbook, usually when it's in the wallet, making sure that they consider other ways to dump their water, their wastewater into a waterway or pollute the air. So coming up with better solutions. And so agriculture, for example, coming up with better ditches to catch a lot of that runoff, a lot of the chemicals that are used on the crops that then run off into our waterways. We're coming up with ditches to kind of collect that. Also in Indiana, no-till farming is a technique in which you just instead of using a lot of resources to kind of churn up the land, just leave it be and let kind of the nutrients come back into the soil. And so all of this prevention, thinking about ways to lessen the impact, and usually these are different strategies in different areas of the world. Another key, for sure, is innovation. There's a solution to every problem, and innovation is usually that solution. So coming up with new ideas. And this is why you see the importance of STEM education, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, is coming up with new formulas, new ways to conceptualize or visualize or understand how we produce and use energy. And so this is going to then relate to technological change in terms of new fuel sources, new ways to power vehicles, new ways to power homes, new ways to power cities. This could be solar, could be biomass, could be hydroelectric, geothermal, nuclear, wind, tidal, solar. So all of this, in Indiana in particular, automobile innovation is something that we need to lead the way. Why? First off, we have this legacy of automobile innovation that we've had here. In fact, the first time a rear view mirror was ever really used was in Indianapolis. And so we've got this, and that was in 1911, so we've got this history of innovation. It's always been here. Let's continue it. Further, this is going to be something that requires a lot of research and development, so it's going to be a stage 4 country with high numbers of tertiary and quaternary sector types of jobs, ideas, research. So this is going to be one of those things that creative class is going to be key to coming up with these new ideas. And so key to a lot of these different environmental change and human activities is coming up with better ways, cleaner ways, more efficient ways to do whatever it might be. Could be to better ways to mine, better ways to power a car, better ways to power a big, huge, large city. And then, of course, there's some economic incentive in that innovation. If we come up with the ideas, we make a lot of money. Yay! So we see, as far as innovation, it's high risk, high reward, but why not? This is something that is definitely, in Indiana and the Midwest, we're going to continue to be driving our cars. Along the coast, New York, LA, public transportation is probably going to become an increasing percentage of the ways in which people move around. But automobile innovation, let's lead the way. Third, land use change patterns. And so a lot of what's fueling deforestation in the Amazon rainforest is the fact that the government has built roads. And the government has built roads into the forest, and so what it does is allows more easier access to these areas and clearing of the Amazon rainforest, and so you can penetrate deeper into that forest, essentially. And when we look at more stateside, the United States, or maybe more in Indiana and Indianapolis, is reducing sprawl. So the sprawling nature of suburban growth, in which it's low density and it just kind of sprawls outward with no really rhyme or reason. And so what that means is it's essentially roads and infrastructures all laid out so that homes and subdivisions and little sprawling neighborhoods can be built farther and farther out. So that's another way kind of which the government and the infrastructure encourages a more land-intensive land use pattern in terms of residential development. More downtown areas, we look at one of the problems you find in inner city areas is kind of the air quality is not as good. One way to improve that is plant more trees. You also find a lot of inner city areas more people dying of heat strokes because of the lack of shade, the lack of trees to provide that canopy over an area. And so a solution to a lot of these inner city areas that have a lot of abandoned and vacant homes is to knock them down. What are you going to do with that land? Convert to agriculture. Convert to a little garden area that can then serve and provide food sources for the local population. So better accessibility to better foods. Also, what this can do is encourage more recreation, encourage more interaction with others. And so all these are things in inner city areas you might not see right now in large amounts. And so what we got going on is changing our land use. And so one of the things you're starting to see is improvements in septic and sewer, essentially crap tanks, let's just say like that. And so what that means is essentially residential areas can be built way out from the city, and it doesn't require being linked up to the city's sewer system because the septic tanks in those particular areas are so good at serving themselves. And so you're seeing innovation in septic tanks and crap tanks. And so what that means is people are going to be able to live even farther out. And so that's where technology can be not so much of a good thing. So it adds to the sprawling nature of our urban development or suburban development. And so land use, preventing that, zoning that says we can't just all of a sudden build a subdivision in an area in the middle of nowhere, will prevent that. And so it'll encourage growth that's closer to the central business district. All of these are just a snapshot of these examples of land use in which you see a lot of government encouragement, but also just negligence in as far as not paying attention to how we use the land and how that affects the environment. Finally, less economic inequality. So it's essentially just more economic security for the lower income individuals. And the argument is if you want this buzzword, sustainable development, you need to provide more economic security for people. And essentially, you need to lower the inequality levels that you see. So essentially, lower income individuals, there really isn't an incentive to do recycling when it costs money. A lot of areas still that you have to pay to recycle, to have someone come up and pick up your recyclables. So that's, we look at a lot of this environmental policy, a lot of these, different things in which we want to improve the environment are luxury items in many cases, especially for lower income individuals. And this is something that, you're going to find out in a future chapter that I'm not Republican or I'm not Democrat. I'm very much 50-50. And so I'm also a finance major and I'm also a geographer. So I know kind of the tree-hugging environmental side of things, but I also know the finance pro-business side of things. And I definitely see these environmental issues from that same light. And so when I look at the Republican Party, the key to the Republican Party is, of course, conservative ideas. And so when we think about environmental conservation, conservatives, those things should go hand in hand, but at the moment they don't. There's more of a focus in the Republican Party on economic issues rather than environmental issues. But I would argue that a lot of these environmental issues are also economic. There's ways in which you can make money, especially if we become the innovators. We become the places in the area in which these new ideas, these new technologies are going to be originate, and then we can make money off of that. And so also you look at environmental conservation, so think about being more conservative. We can then reduce our dependence on foreign oil. We can come up with alternative sources domestically. And so similarly, when we look at a lot of the Democratic Party, a lot of their very more environmental policy, the more environmental issues, a lot of them are very expensive. And so coming up with more efficient, coming up with better ideas that are going to be, not going to, lower the economic vitality of our country. And so making sure that, we still have rather affordable costs as far as our heating costs, or lower gasoline prices, and so all of these things, you can look at it from both sides of the political prism.